Welcome. My name is Meena Krenek. I'm a principal and interior design director with Perkins and Will. Welcome to my home for this exciting little fire shot chat we're having. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm excited to give a little bit of advice or coaching or some, things that I wish I knew when I was in my mid of my career and was evolving in different ways and seeking different chapters. So thank you for having me, IIDA, and wanted to spend a little bit of time with you to talk a little bit about things that I'm seeing in the industry right now, especially such crazy times in our world. And who would have thought that we would be sitting here 10 months in? A lot of us are working from home. A global pandemic has erupted our world, and it's affected our business, unfortunately. There are things that, construction and real estate has been on hold. A lot of our project work is on hold, and just general mindset in general has been on somewhat of a hold. And so we're all waiting for most of us to become vaccinated and to start again on getting out there and connecting with people. And so I'm looking forward to what 2021 is going to bring all of us, new and improved. But with all that being said, I wanted to share with you some things that I've been thinking about the climate right now, and how if we're going out to market and really looking for our next chapter, what should we be doing, and what are things that I would advise, or things that I'm personally looking for when I think about, going into a new job opportunity, and what that career chapter would look like, and what kind of colleague would be best suited to be out there right now. And it's funny, we spend so much time in academia working on our portfolios, and a lot of times once we get into the business, we don't document our work and celebrate our work as much as we should. And I think there's a whole huge amount of storytelling when it comes down to the work that we produce. Not only the story that we had with the client, but the story that we had with the team as we, journeyed upon solving a problem for a client. So one of my first components to kind of share with you is, like, number one, when you are sharing your portfolio with a prospective employer, be really clear. They don't need to know your whole journey per se. There's a lot of storytelling involved, but even if you are telling a story, have one clear point, one clear takeaway. And that could be about how you're affecting the person that you did the work for, or, something greater, of like a new typology that was created. So, think big idea, high level. That's number one. Excuse me. Number two is you have to find a way to connect with the person across the screen, and connecting to them in a way that you want to reach out and understand them more, and that you're curious about who they are and who their firm is. And I think that has to come very natural to however you'd like to approach that. But I'm always looking for a very curious being, and people that have a lot of questions, versus people that talk about themselves, versus really kind of curious about what is it like at your firm, and what is it like working with you, and those deeper questions about what the experience is like. And then also figuring out, do you feel a sense of alignment? I mean, chemistry is a component of this that's so unique. So pay attention to things people say. I always tell people you have two ears and one mouth. So listen hard, listen in between the lines when you're making kind of that deeper connection, and see if the chemistry exists. The second component of this is visual communication. So we all, regardless of be sitting in our kitchens, in our offices, in our family rooms, we all are giving off energy. And how are we coming across with the words we're using, with the visuals we're showing? I think that's like huge, because we're on Zoom calls, and we're on team calls all day long. So whatever you're showing someone, make it impactful. You don't have to show a lot, but make the things that you're showing interesting, that you have an interesting one mission story about them, and that you are really talking about things that are interesting, that are innovative, are different, right? And so I think it's not about the quantity of work you're showing. It's really about how you explain the story, and are those words matching the visual connection or the visual communication piece. And I think that's really important. Like I hear people using similar language over and over again in our industry, but make it yours. Make it your language and make it your visual that really is unique and is different and is what people are kind of looking for and more curious about. And I guess the last piece of this that I think is extremely important is it's how people get to see your thinking, and that has a lot to do with the stories that you share and thinking about whatever you are sharing that kind of expresses your superpower. And I think that's important when you're interviewing, but it's also important as you're walking through your career. There is ways that you constantly need to show your value regardless of where you are in your career and where you're going. And I think being able to share with people, what you really care about and how you brought value to a team or a client is so important. We're a part of this as a team sport. Nothing gets built, created without a team of people. I like to say it's a collective group of, different slices of geniuses that come together to make these projects successful. But you personally bring a value. And I think that's important for people to see, and how you talk about your value in a way that is humble but yet confident is quite essential. And I think that we can't undermine or underplay confidence enough. The way you carry yourself, the way you talk about the work, the way you listen, all of that is a response about, who you are, your mannerisms, your design thinking. Be confident in your skin, and don't be shy. You couldn't have gotten through design school and in the industry if you weren't special and special in your unique way. So be able to kind of share that on the screen, and it can come in all different forms and fashion, but people feel comfortable around confident people and people that can kind of laugh at themselves. And I think that we all have to find that for ourselves. But, ask people. I tell people a lot when they're developing their personal brand, ask people what people remember about you when you leave the room. It's important, how did I come across? Ask people that you're working with, how was I perceived, so that you want to get better. All of us have the ability to influence each other, but we want to influence each other in a way that's healthy and positive. And how does that come across? So, I would definitely ask people and ask colleagues that you feel are your trusted colleagues, how did it feel when I walked in the room? What did I share? What was my unique value? I think that's also very important. So I've shared with you a lot of different things in the interview process. And if you are looking for work right now, I think this idea of visual communication that I touched on is probably the one essential thing I'd like you guys to walk away with today. Is that, I talked about visual connections and visual communication and your words and how they have to match when you're on a Zoom call. The other piece of this is showing things that are animated, that have an emotive value, that are different, instead of a still shot or a still photograph. Are you showing photography with people in it? Are you showing photography with enough diversity in it? All of those things matter, so make sure that your visual communication, because we're inspired every day by so many things on IG to connections we're making across the screen. Why are your visuals that you're showing unique, different, stand out? Oh, I'll remember that. So think about that when you're presenting. And in any case, even if you are presenting work to win work, I think is, are we visually communicating in the fourth space? Are we bringing in, this kind of emotion that design does? Is, we're selling, as designers, we're selling an experience. And an experience involves all of your sensory components. So make sure that when you are doing visual communication across the screen, why don't you have, just for your personal sense, have a candle in the room? So that's a sensory component that's stimulating you. Why don't we have more music being played when we are on these interviews together? There's a level of stimulation there. But then also, when you are showing your work, is it important to have a testimonial from a client that's represented on a video? Or there's other things that you can show and that allow you to kind of stand out from the rest. And I like that idea of you trying to focus on what that is for you. And it may not be all your projects in your portfolio, but there's a few that deserve that kind of level of share. Okay, so I'm going to get to the second part of this kind of fireside chat we're having. And the second part is, what are some of the things that I wish I knew when I got into the industry, or while I was in the industry in my early stages of my career? And I talk a lot about this, is my executive board. So Meena Krenek's executive board. And this reminds me, because I used to spend a great deal of time in my career, in the very beginning part of my career, I loved 3D animation, and I would sit in the office and I would render, and I would actually build things in AutoCAD, and then I render them in 3D Studio Max. And I remember just sitting in the studio, just watching it render. And there were so many times, like, people would be like, oh, I'm going to a cocktail hour, Herman Miller, or a furniture dealer or manufacturer is having an event. Come on, Meena, let's go. And I'd be like, no, I'm going to just work. I'm going to sit here and get this rendering out. And I was just like really into the work. And I didn't socialize much. I was just really loving just working and doing great project work. And I loved it because I obviously evolved as a designer in my practice, and I became a interior design director, and that was one of my larger aspirations. But I didn't get out a lot, and now I'm out a lot, and I know that I get a lot of joy out of that, and meeting people and connecting with people. But I didn't do it when I was in the younger part of my career, and I say that because that level of networking internally with your organization, externally with colleagues, externally with clients, it's so important. And just, you learn so much and you get so inspired by others that it's so worth doing. And I feel very fortunate. There's different times in my career where now I have people on Meena Krenek's executive board that I can call and I can text anytime with anything, any struggle that I'm having in my career. And they are my trusted advisors, and they know what I'm seeking, and they get me, and that's an interesting terminology, they understand me. And I think I'm so grateful for those people. And so I have an executive board that are my coaches and advisors in my career, and I feel very fortunate for them and about who they are and what they've brought to kind of advancing my career and kind of showing me the ropes. So I definitely encourage all of you to make sure you have good partners and trusted advisors on your executive board. The second piece of this is, it may sound really simple, and I don't want to sound cliche, but you got to really like what we're doing. I mean, you got to feel the work. And it's just so simple. Like, when you're doing and you're in the vibe where you need to be, you can do a lot of things and possibilities are wide open. But if you're trying to fit into something that you're not, then everything's off balance. And you have to make sure that you're in the zone that you're in. I mean, people say a lot, oh, I feel like I'm not set up for success. And so that we have to think about that, because if you're in the space, in the zone, in your role where you are doing what you do best, then you can thrive, and the world is the world is totally open to you, and your firm is totally open to you, because you are an asset to whatever you're doing, because you're bringing your best self to the table, right? And I think that a lot of times we think we can do something, but we're not set up to do that. So then we're not going to do that well, and we affect a lot of people because we're in a team sport together, right? So I think that's really, really important. And I say that because, I have been with Perkins & Will since 2005. I'm sharing a lot. And I worked in the Atlanta practice, then the New York practice, and now I'm in the LA practice. But for a time, I took 2 years off of Perkins & Will, and I went to another firm. And during that time, I was not in the right zone. And I know that. Don't get me wrong, I did some great work, and I worked for some great accounts. I had some great team members, and it was a good experience. But personally, for Meena, I was not in the right cultural fit. And I can tell you that it was not healthy for me. And yeah, there's things that were very successful about that experience, and I don't try not to have very many regrets. But I also realized that when you are in an environment where you're best set up to just be you, you can do great things in the design world. You can just do great things. And it has a lot to do with like who you are, the culture you're connected with, and the people you surround yourself with. So I tell you all that because it's something I learned. And I feel like I have to share it with the rest of you, because I think it's so important not to try to do something that you're just not really, it's okay. You're just not meant to be in that culture and that vibe, and you know where you strive. So listen to the wise person inside of you. It's so important. That was my big share. So the second piece of this is, or I think I'm on my third piece of this kind of lessons learned that I wish folks have told me. The first one was really thinking about your personal brand. And the second one was this idea of making sure that you were in the right place for where you want to go in your career. And then just making sure that, you network the way you need to network and to get to that personal brand, and having your executive board. And then this last piece that I think is so essential is every encounter you have, every client encounter, every colleague encounter, it's important. It's important because you never know where you're going to connect with someone. You never know how someone may have something to teach you. You never know, small project or large project, what that opportunity is going to be for you. So don't be quick to judge, and really be open-minded when you approach projects and clients and people. I think it's just, I wish I was more open-minded in my career. I think there's we all grow up and we're different maturity levels, but I always wanted the coolest job in project work, and I would always be sad if I wasn't selected to get the coolest project. But then I realized the project that was right in front of me is actually the coolest project. So think about that. I think that's important, because you have to be in the moment. I remember specifically, I said yes before I was ready. And I think that is something where sometimes, especially as a woman, sometimes we think we need to check all the boxes before we apply for some opportunity. But the reality is you have to say yes before you're ready. We all want to be challenged. We're all very hungry for the next challenge. So don't be shy about that. So, in closing, I am very thankful for organizations like IIDA because it's an amazing network and allows you to meet some really talented people across the country. So, belong to associations where you feel like you can make those greater connections. I'm a big fan of IIDA. And then the second is, we talked a little bit about confidence. We all are bringing, as I say, a slice of genius to everything that we do. We have unique skill sets. Understand your superpowers and bring them on with the most gusto. There's only one you. So make sure you recognize who that one you is and bring that person on. Well, happy holidays, everyone. And thanks again for listening to me chat about my journey. And I look forward to a new and improved 2021. Thank you, IIDA.